The moment I opened our bedroom door, my wife's lips were pressed to the man I once left in a wheelchair, and his eyes dared me to call it unfair. Every choice since has been a domino falling in slow motion. Stay till the last tile drops. The one that lands face up decides who walks away whole. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and keep this tab open, because the choice I made in the next few minutes will twist more than one life, and you won't want to miss how deep the cut goes. Rain hammered Boston's cobblestones the night I first felt destiny grinding its teeth behind me. I was 55, driving home from a late client meeting, replaying the same jazz loop on the radio just to stay awake. One careless glance at the dashboard clock, 11:30, all ready tomorrow, cost me the second that might have saved us all. A figure stepped off the curb. My headlights carved him out of darkness like a doomed photograph. Tires shrieked. Metal bit flesh. When the sedan stopped, the world held its breath. And then James Fielding lay twisted beneath the sodium glow, eyes wider than the puddles filling around him. If I'd known the sound his wheels would make 4 years later against my bedroom floorboards, would I have prayed harder at the scene? Court transcripts would later say, James jaywalked. Contributory negligence, the lawyer murmured, smoothing my tie before the verdict. The phrase tasted like aspirin, bitter relief masking deeper sickness. But paper absolution couldn't bleach the image of James in traction, his sons Tyler and Dean, gangly, terrified teenagers, hovering over a man who could barely turn his own pillow. My wife, Sarah, met them first in the hallway outside intensive care. She offered coffee, a ride, maybe comfort that didn't come wrapped in legal lingo. Sarah's empathy had always been diamond cut, brilliant yet uncompromising. She visited James the next week, and the week after. At first I thanked her. Guilt needs caretakers, too. Then months slipped by like water under a warped door. I noticed how her eyes stayed glassy long after she returned, like she'd watched a heartbreaking movie and left the ending unfinished. She began booking evening errands that outlasted store hours. Ever see a hairline crack in your windshield? You tell yourself it's nothing, until cold air widens it overnight. One Saturday in April, I found a wilted carnation on the passenger seat of our Volvo. Hospital vase cheap, too sentimental to be mine. Sarah laughed it off, a grateful patient. Yet my pulse drummed a warning. I told myself suspicion was poison, that love meant trust. Still, late at night, I sometimes pressed a palm over my chest to calm the riot there, and felt only hollow thunder. By fall, the accident's anniversary loomed. I imagined James tracing the date on his calendar with immobile hands, counting everything he'd lost, running with his sons, dancing at their graduations, mowing damp September grass just to smell the clippings. I sent an anonymous donation to his rehab fund, hoping money could patch what metal had undone. It didn't patch my marriage. Silence pooled between Sarah and me like that rainwater around James. Conversations stalled at weather and grocery lists. Her smile felt rehearsed, her kisses distracted, as if her lips were already somewhere else, memorizing a different heartbeat. And that's when the phone started locking itself. Not once, but always. An iron gate where lawn fences used to stand. One winter morning, I reached for Sarah's phone to silence an alarm while she showered. A new passcode barred me. My fingers trembled with knowledge too ugly for daylight. I set the phone down, ashamed of what I'd tried, but more ashamed of what the passcode meant. Cruelly, the universe gave me one more omen. A neighbor spotted Sarah wheeling a stranger up our front path while I was away. "Some fella in a chair," she said, assuming I knew. I shrugged it off. Not every chair held James. Yet dread wrapped itself tighter. A python of possibility. If you think the worst thing you can imagine is bad, wait until imagination hands the baton to truth. Tuesday the 14th of February, a day packaged for roses and forgiveness, arrived brittle with frost. I left work early under pretense of a migraine, windshield wipers clacking a nervous metronome. Each mile home felt like walking deeper into a maze I'd drawn myself. Our colonial townhouse sat serene, blinds half closed like resting eyelids. No second car in the drive. The calm mocked me. Inside, the foyer smelled of jasmine tea, Sarah's comfort scent. Yet the kettle was silent, the living room empty. A dull rattle drifted from upstairs. Wheels? My stomach folded in on itself. Halfway up the staircase, I hesitated, hand hovering above the banister. Turn around, a sane voice urged. Go back. Stay blind. Let mercy hold your imagination hostage. But pride, that shabby knight, spurred me onward. On the landing, a framed photo greeted me. Sarah and me in Arcadia National Park, cliffs behind, gulls circling. I tapped the glass, a silent apology to the happier strangers within, and pushed open the master bedroom door. They didn't hear me at first. Soft February light spilled across quilted sheets. In its glow, James Fielding sat in his charcoal wheelchair beside the bed, leaning forward. Sarah knelt before him, hands cupped around his, whispering something that made his shoulders shake. Not in pain, but a laugh tinged with wonder. Then she rose, brushing fingertips along his cheek, and kissed him. I didn't drop anything dramatic. No suitcase, no glass shattered. Instead, a primal chill rooted me to the threshold, my own breath refusing the cold. Sarah sensed disturbance, turned, and our gazes collided like two cars on black ice. Harry, her voice cracked, half plea, half confession. She stepped toward me, but James's hand tightened around hers, and she stopped. His eyes, once pleading beneath ambulance sirens, now burned with a fierce serenity. There was no apology in them, only a calm announcement. Equilibrium restored. I swallowed shards of fury, but words wouldn't arrange themselves. At my feet, sunlight traced the carpet pattern, vines twisting through roses. One leaf resembled a splatter of rust, old blood dried thin. I noticed meaningless things. The clock chiming 4, Sarah's cardigan sliding from a chair, a paperback titled Hope After Trauma on the nightstand. How long? I finally managed, tongue thick as lead. Silence answered first. Then Sarah's whisper, months. Harry, I tried. She bit off the rest, eyes filling. James cleared his throat. Mr. Oldman, he said, formal, deliberate. Some debts run deeper than verdicts. The words swung like a gavel, yet what echoed louder was the gentle timbre he used, as though pitying me. Rage flashed, but confusion doused it. My villain had become my judge. Imagine losing everything to the man who took it, and then daring to steal from him the one thing he values most. Would you call it justice or blasphemy? I backed away. The hallway warped, walls inching closer. Downstairs, I collided with a side table. A seashell lamp thudded to the rug. I didn't pick it up. Outside, evening scooped the sky into bruised purple. I walked aimlessly, coat unbuttoned, throat burning with unscreamed questions. How many shared dinners? How many secret laughs had they stockpiled while I balanced spreadsheets? And yet, beneath the hurt, a kernel of acknowledgement sparked. Had my guilt paved their path? Had I, by failing to visit James, offered Sarah the permission my conscience denied? That night, I slept in a motel a mile from the seaport. Ceiling stains formed continents above me. Every creak in the corridor became Sarah's footsteps. Every hiss of plumbing, James's wheels. At 3 a.m., wave-kissed fog rolled off the harbor, ghostly and persuasive. Go home, it murmured, or you'll never know which part of the story you truly occupy, victim or perpetrator. I didn't go home. Not yet. If you think a shattered heart can't break again, wait until remorse starts carving its own initials in the fragments. Morning glazed the motel window with salt-streaked light. I scrolled through photos on my phone. Our wedding in '98, Sarah laughing with icing on her nose, Tyler and Dean's graduation snapshot Sarah had texted me after visiting James's family. How had I missed the foreshadowing etched in every pixel? A knock on the door jolted me. I imagined Sarah, tear-rimmed, or James, impossibly upright, coming to parley. Instead, a courier held out a slim envelope. Return address. No name, just a rehabilitative care facility's logo. Inside lay a single sheet. Harry, truth is currency. Spend it wisely. Come to 114 Beacon Street tonight at 8. She deserves the whole ledger. J.F. Beacon Street. James's rented apartment, retrofitted for accessibility. The invitation pulsed like a live wire between my fingers. All day I drifted through work like a stunned marionette. Numbers blurred. Colleagues' voices sloshed past. At 6, I stood before the office bathroom mirror, rehearsing sentences that felt either too cruel or too meek. My reflection looked older than 59, jowls slack, eyes bloodshot. I splashed water, straightened the same tie I'd worn to court 4 years ago, and walked into dusk. Beacon Street's brownstones glowed amber under gas-styled lamps. Apartment 114's door opened before I knocked. James's aide, a wiry college kid named Malik, greeted me with a nod and vanished into the kitchen. In the living room, Sarah sat on a sofa patterned with bluebirds, hands folded. No tears now. Eyes steady, a reservoir breached and drained. James positioned himself opposite, chair angled like a chess bishop. Between us, a low table held 3 mugs of tea. Harry, Sarah began. Please sit. Listen before you speak, I did, because the word please sounded like the final plank between us. James's gaze pinned me not with anger but with mortal calm, the calm of someone already sentenced once. He spoke first. The night you hit me, I hated you, he said, tone flat. Then I hated myself for crossing that street. Hatred breeds, Harry. It bred until Sarah lit a match in the dark. She didn't start with love. She started with pity. Pity became conversation. Conversation became collaboration. Physical therapy you funded, by the way. He half smiled. Irony's a playful devil. Sarah's fingers twitched, as if remembering how to lace mine. Harry, I went to help him because I couldn't watch guilt swallow you whole. But talking about you with James felt simpler than talking to you. One day I realized the compassion I poured into him was what I'd stopped pouring into us, and by then, the cup inside me had changed shape. Could any surgeon stitch that explanation into a wound and declare it healed? James inhaled. You deserve rage, but rage rots. So I asked Sarah to bring you here, not to plead for understanding, only to complete the circle. You and I will never trade places, but we can stop orbiting the same dead star. His words grated against stone walls I'd built. Yet some part of me, raw from sleepless nights, recognized a perverse grace in the offer. I leaned forward. What do you want from me? Forgiveness? Permission to keep my wife? Sarah flinched. James's brow furrowed. No, he said. I want you to choose whether the rest of your life is defined by that collision or by what you do next. Keep Sarah. Let her go. That's between you two. My role ends here. The clock chimed 8:30. From a distant alley, a saxophone wailed something lonely. I pictured 3 timelines unfurling. One where I stormed out, bleeding pride. One where I begged Sarah to stay. And one, most terrifying, where I sought peace with the enemy who'd become her refuge. Which would you choose if the very act of choosing revealed truths you'd hidden from yourself? I reached into my coat, withdrew the anonymous donation receipt I'd made to James's therapy fund, and slid it across the table. That was me, I said. It wasn't enough. James studied the paper, then nodded. It was a start. Sarah's eyes shimmered, not with triumph, but with exhaustion relieved. I realized she hadn't wanted conquest. She'd wanted resolution, any resolution, before love turned entirely to rust. My voice cracked. We have damage no mechanic can fix. But maybe we can stop adding dents. Nobody spoke for several heartbeats, and in that hush, an absurd memory surfaced. The cracked windshield after the accident. I'd replaced it the next day, but a tiny fragment of the old glass remained wedged in the hood seam for months, catching light in sudden glints. You can change panes, yet shards linger. Harry, Sarah whispered, I can't erase what happened. I can't promise return to normal, but I can promise honesty. Outside, snow began to fall, quiet, tentative, like apology. Through the window, we watched flakes melt on the sill, each surrendering instantly. The three of us breathed the same fragile air. Stay with this story. The next chapter digs beneath the fresh snow and finds everything we buried. But nothing stays buried forever. The snow that feather dusts Boston at dawn usually hushes everything. Traffic, gossip, even regret. But that Wednesday, it only sharpened each sound until the city rang like brittle glass. I'd slipped back into our empty house after the meeting on Beacon Street, intent on gathering a change of clothes, maybe some courage. Instead, I found a single envelope on the oak kitchen table, addressed in Sarah's looping cursive. For Harry, read when ready. No seal, no stamp. Just an invitation to detonate. I left it unopened, stuffed it into my coat, and headed to the office. Work should have been icy anesthesia. Spreadsheets, risk models, quarterly projections. Here's the problem. Numbers can't drown a heart that beats frantic binary. Stay/leave, forgive/fight. I miskeyed a hedge fund position, watched 8 zeros wobble on screen like loose teeth, and realized I was bleeding competence onto the keyboard. At lunch, I escaped to the parking garage, breathing exhaust and January iron. I finally tore the envelope. 3 pages. Sarah's handwriting shaky, but resolute. Harry, I will not defend what you saw. I should have told you sooner. James offered me something unimaginable, a mirror held up to my grief. Loving him began where my ability to love you stalled, but it has never erased what you and I built. Tonight, James's lawyer is filing a civil suit against the auto manufacturer for faulty brakes. He wanted me to tell you first, but I insisted on writing myself. This suit will expose everything. The accident, the verdict, our fragile triangle. Reporters will come. I don't know where we land after that. I only know secrets fester. Sarah, a civil suit? Against the car company, not me. Yet depositions reopen wounds. Old police reports become public again. TV anchors feast on tragedies, then sniff for scandal seasoning. Once my name appeared beside the phrase paralyzed victim, the street would whisper, "Wasn't that the guy whose wife?" I crumpled the letter into a fist but couldn't throw it away. Instead, I dialed my brother Ellis, public relations shark turned family cautionary tale. He answered on the second ring, voice rough with perpetual cold brew. Harry, long time. You calling to fund my next startup? Need advice, I said, words chafing. Crisis management. He whistled. Finally torched that perfect husband reputation, huh? Talk fast. Clients in 5, I outlined the impending suit. The bedroom scene. Ellis listened without jokes, which scared me more than sarcasm. 2 fronts, he said. 1, legal. Get your own counsel now. 2, narrative. Control first tell. You'll need a statement. Humanize yourself before tabloids do it. He paused. Also, brother to brother, book therapy. Shame's a silent arsonist. I didn't start the fire. You're still burning. The call ended. The garage felt narrower. Somewhere above, car tires squealed, a mundane sound. Yet every screech now tunneled straight back to rain-slick asphalt and James's silhouette. By dusk, I drove to the harbor again. envelope flattening against my chest like a second heartbeat. Wind whipped sea spray over the parapet, salt stinging eyes already raw. I forced them open, staring at gray chop until I understood. No tide ever reverses. It only circles back, wearing new disguises. And if I didn't start steering, this current, Sarah's letter, James's lawsuit, Ellis's warning, would smash me against rocks I'd chosen to ignore. Imagine discovering that the only way to salvage your life is by testifying to destroy the woman you still love. Thursday morning delivered its next punch before sunrise. A voicemail from James's attorney, Lydia Scarbeck. Polite ice. Mr. Oldman, as a potential witness to breaking performance, you'll be deposed within 10 days. We'll strive for minimal disruption. Minimal disruption is legalese for welcome to public vivisection. I booked the earliest slot with a defense firm downtown, Franklin and Rhodes, then drove out to Milton Rehab, where James was scheduled for aquatic therapy. I needed answers unfiltered by counsel. The facility's pool area smelled of chlorine and regret. James floated in a sling harness while a therapist guided his arms through viscous blue. He spotted me, nodded permission I hadn't asked for. The therapist drifted away. Civil suit? I said, voice echoing off tiled walls. Water lapped. 4 years late, but technology finally proved brake failure. I'm tired of being collateral damage, and Sarah? My question spiked the air. His shoulders twitched, sending ripples. She urged caution. I need justice more than her protection. She understands then. Softer. Do you? I stared at pool ladders reflecting on water, a broken DNA helix. You'll drag her through depositions, cameras, gossip. Truth costs. His gaze held mine, unblinking. You paid once, with guilt. Pay again, with courage. Courage. The word tasted like rusted nails. Was it bravery to help him, or cowardice to sabotage? Before I found the answer, the therapist returned, session over. As I left, James called after me. Harry, some nights I still hear your engine. I'd like to sleep silent at least once before I die. Outside, flakes drifted in lazy spirals. My phone buzzed. Sarah. I hesitated, then answered. Where are you? She asked. Milton Rehabilitation. Needed clarity? Makes two of us. Dad's lake house. Tonight, neutral ground. The lake house, empty since her parents passed. Winters there felt like pages sealed in ice. I agreed, hung up, and drove west, each mile snow-whitened, erasing signposts like unforgiving editors. The cabin's porch light glowed amber. Inside, logs crackled. Sarah stood near the hearth, cheeks flushed from cold or fear. I couldn't tell. Between us on the coffee table lay 3 object lessons. My wedding ring, which she'd noticed missing, her ring, and a silver crucifix James's son Tyler had given her as thanks years ago. Sarah spoke first. I won't lie or hide. Ask so I did. Everything. Timelines, feelings, physical boundaries crossed. She answered steadily, sometimes pausing to swallow shards of guilt, sometimes letting tears vent steam. The affair, she swore, began months ago, but emotional intimacy seeped much earlier, into cracks we both watched widen. He reminds me life is fragile, she whispered. With you, I began fearing that truth instead of cherishing it. Her honesty flayed, yet something inside me, a parasite named self-righteousness, shrunk under that fire. I'd been so consumed by my own remorse that I left her to tend it alone, the way one spouse sometimes waters plants the other forgets. Do you love him? The question lumbered out. She stared at the crucifix. I don't know what word fits, but I won't abandon him. Then, gaze steady. Do you want to abandon me? The hearth popped. Flames licked cedar like eager tongues. My answer hid behind years of shared jokes, mortgage payments, hospital vigils for her mother, anniversary trips that survived budget cuts, memories that refused the eviction notice calamity served. I don't want to abandon who we were, I said, but I don't know if that's who we can be. Outside, lake ice moaned, thick plates shifting under fresh snow, threatening cracks no one could see until boots punched through. Sarah exhaled. Then let's build a truce until the depositions. No headlines about domestic war truce. The word felt provisional, like plywood over a broken window. Buys time. Doesn't fix weather. We drafted practicalities, living arrangements, separate bedrooms, press queries, joint no comment, therapy, individual, then maybe couples. Details felt mercenary, yet strangely life-supporting, like sutures in battlefield light. When I left, Sarah touched my sleeve. Harry, whatever verdict this world writes, promise me your chapter won't end in bitterness. Don't gift James, or me, that power driving back. I wondered if bitterness was truly a choice, or just the default flavor of wounds left untended. Tomorrow's newspaper will leak the lawsuit, and the first headline will twist everything we just tried to steady. Friday, 6 a.m. My phone pinged like an alarm inside an alarm. Boston Globe exclusive. Paralyzed father sues over brake failure. Accident driver. Cooperative. Beneath, a smaller slug. Sources close to the family reveal complex personal ties. That phrase is journalist code for adultery incoming. By 8, camera vans prowled our cul-de-sac like wolves sniffing fresh kill. I slipped out the back, tie stuffed in pocket, and sprinted to my sedan, heart-hammering accusations. As I reversed, flashes popped in rear view. Lens hounds denied breakfast. At Franklin and Rhodes, walls of glass and brushed steel mirrored my disarray. Senior partner Dana Rhodes ushered me into a conference room scented with espresso and confidential settlements. She laid out strategy. Transfer liability to manufacturer. Emphasize my cooperation. Minimize personal drama. Stay factual, remorseful but dignified, she said, adjusting tortoiseshell frames. Public sympathizes with sorrowful men who learn from mistakes. They crucify men tangled in love triangles with victims, I bristled. I didn't create the triangle. She shrugged. Jurors don't diagram geometry. They react to shapes. Deposition prep began. She rehearsed me through potential traps. Why didn't you visit Mr. Fielding? Did marital issues impair your driving focus that night? Each question felt like salt rubbed into fractures I'd only begun mapping. Break time. I checked voicemail. Ellis again. Grin audible. Bro, I floated your story to a podcast. Redemption arc stuff. They smell Emmys. Call me before you implode, delete. Lunch break brought Sarah's text. Reporters outside my clinic. Patients upset. We need firewall. I pictured her white coat splattered by flashbulbs, and guilt surged anew. I forwarded the location of a discreet hotel near Beacon Hill. Told her I'd cover the suite. She replied with a single blue heart. Ambiguous as prophecy. Afternoon session. Dana introduced me to Dr. Lena Cho, forensic trauma specialist. She'd analyzed my psychological state pre- and post-crash, drafting an affidavit to frame me as suffering situational tunnel vision rather than negligence. Language danced on tightropes. Human error softened by stress. Mechanical failure foregrounded. As she spoke, I realized how stories mutate once professionals distill them. Spines extracted, organs rearranged for palatability. 5:30. I exited into gold dusk, exhaustion sagging bones. Across the street, a young reporter recognized me, microphone raised. I ignored her until she shouted James's name in a fair. A passerby's phone already filmed. I pivoted, pulse jackhammering, but Dana's training echoed. No comment is quieter than anger. I walked on. At home, driveway empty. Sarah at the hotel. I opened the front door and froze. The living room drapes billowed inward. Window broken. Glass glittered across hardwood like frost. In the center of the floor sat James's crucifix, chain coiled snake-like, pendant crowned by a jagged stone used to shatter glass. I scanned shadows. Nobody. Alarm panel still armed. Entry silent. I dialed police, voice steady only because terror outran it. While waiting, I spotted paper under the crucifix, a newspaper clipping. My mugshot from the night of the accident, eyes red-rimmed beneath station fluorescents. Across it, thick marker scrawled, "Debts double with interest." Police arrived, secured the scene. No fingerprints but mine. Stone, likely from my own garden. Officers suggested random vandalism. Lawsuit brings crazies. Yet the crucifix broadcast intent. Someone knew the affair, knew it gutted me, and wanted bloodied salt rubbed deep. When the cruiser taillights vanished, the house felt colder than Beacon Street snowmelt. I swept glass, hands trembling. Each shard mirrored a fractured piece of the life I'd curated. Reputation, marriage, atonement. And somewhere out there, a hand waited to tip all those shards into fresh wounds. I called Sarah, explained. She gasped, asked if I was safe, offered to return. I said stay. Hotel security trumped splintered windows. After we hung up, insomnia crept in early, dragging chains of what-ifs. What if James didn't authorize that threat, but someone aligned with him did? What if Tyler or Dean, burning for father's justice, had hurled that stone? Worse, what if resentment inside me eventually did the same, metaphorically or brutally? At 2 a.m., I sat at the kitchen table, crucifix resting on a folded dish towel. I found myself whispering a prayer I hadn't voiced since childhood. Deliver us from evil. Then, realizing my hypocrisy, added, especially the evil we fertilize ourselves. Somewhere between one breath and another, decision rooted. Tomorrow, I would face James again. On my own terms. Enough reacting. Time to shape the board before someone flipped it entirely. Because the next clash wouldn't be fought with depositions or tabloid headlines. It would be fought where the original collision began. On a stretch of asphalt no courtroom could fully map. Inside the choices of two men, one walking, one wheeled. Both chained to a single night's rain-slick screech. A February sun, thin as an apology, limped up the skyline while I steered toward the accident site for the first time in 4 years. I'd asked James to meet me there. No attorneys, no Sarah, no press, just asphalt and honesty. He'd agreed with a single text. Midnight replay. 8 a.m. The street looked narrower than memory, its center line chipped like worn vertebrae. I parked yards from the faded skid mark still faintly visible when light slanted just so. History tattooed in rubber. 10 minutes later, a wheelchair van idled behind me. Its lift descended, and James rolled down, gloved hand steady on push rims. Malik, his aide, stayed in the driver's seat, earbuds in, granting distance. James coasted to a stop beside the white-painted ghost bicycle now chained to a lamppost for another victim. A cyclist lost here last summer. Death and injury kept this corner busy. The city hadn't fixed the light timing. Maybe they preferred memorial paint to new circuits. We didn't shake hands. Words gathered like crows on a power line, waiting to peck. I brought something, I began, pulling the cracked fragment of my old windshield from a cloth pouch. I'd pried it free last night. A reminder of my blind spot. He turned the shard in his palm. Winter sunlight fractured inside it, scattering prisms over our coats. Glass keeps cutting long after it breaks, he murmured, passing it back. I exhaled fog. Why the threat? I asked, voice low. Window smashed, crucifix tossed. Was that you? Lines tightened around his eyes. No. Tyler and Dean know about Sarah, but they also know anger bankrupts futures. They wouldn't... He paused. This lawsuit breeds vigilantes, journalists, trolls, even strangers who worship pain. Someone out there wants theater. We both surveyed passing traffic, commuters oblivious to the two men locked in karmic wrestle beside them. I'm here, I said, because a stranger's stone nearly turned me into the monster tabloids are itching to print. I need to understand if your justice requires my destruction. James's gaze drifted to the ghost bike, then back. Justice isn't binary. It's mosaic. Shards and grout. You're a shard, Harry, jagged but essential. I'm not suing you, but you'll testify. Your honesty cements the pattern I bristled. And Sarah? Where does she tile in your design? A hint of sorrow crossed his face. Closer than you want, farther than she hoped. We share an ache you left unattended. That doesn't mean we're built for tomorrow, just that we fit in each other's yesterday. Wind keened through traffic lights, a fluted lament. I crouched to James's level, asphalt dampening my knees. Then help me end yesterday. Withdraw press access, keep Sarah shielded, and I'll testify, truthfully, about the breaks. James studied me. You're bargaining repentance? I'm building a future where none of us needs bodyguards. Silence stretched, taut as violin wire, until he nodded once. I'll instruct Lydia. No media leaks beyond what's public record. His chair whirred as he backed up. But know this. The past still owns our scars. We can only price the rent. Something inside me, tightened since the bedroom discovery, loosened a thread. Not forgiveness, not absolution, but the first crack in armored resentment. As he returned to the van, snowflakes the size of ash began to fall, dissolving on hot engine hoods around us. Midnight had replayed, but we walked away standing, one on wheels, one on shaking legs. Every truce breeds a traitor who thinks peace is theft of vengeance, and mine was already rehearsing its cue backstage. 10 days later, Franklin and Rhodes's oak-paneled war room pulsed with fluorescent adrenaline. 4 litigators, 2 stenographers, 1 dour insurance rep, and a videographer formed the gallery. I sat at the polished table's far end. James, flanked by Lydia Scarbeck, faced me across the legal no-man's land. Sarah, per agreement, remained off-camera, waiting in a side suite to avoid weaponized optics. Dana Rhodes ran pre-flight checks. Water pitcher, throat lozenges, a discreet box of tissues placed equidistant between combatants. Neutral territory for tears. Cameras rolled. The record light blinked cyclops red. Lydia opened. Mr. Old Man. Described the vehicle's behavior seconds before impact. I recited sensory ghosts. Brake pedal mushy, ABS light flickering like a Morse confession, steering wheel jolting left. As rehearsed, I ended with, I panicked. Human error compounded mechanical failure. Dana tapped her pen, a silent metronome to slow my speech and keep emotion measured. Yet, when Lydia pivoted, did marital stress impair your alertness that evening? My lungs iced. Dana objected. Irrelevant. Prejudicial. Judge offsite ruled by speakerphone. Overruled for now. The stenographer's keys clattered like hail. I inhaled. Sarah and I had no significant conflict then. But conscience bucked. We'd been drifting even before. Lydia caught micro-twitches, scenting prey. Define significant, she pressed. Across the table, James watched, unreadable. Was this question inimical to our pact or an unavoidable mine? I considered hedging, but hedges hide grenades. Normal 15-year marriage fatigue, I said, voice steady. Not distraction levels. Lydia switched slides. Photos of my dented sedan, brake fluid reports, recall notices released 2 months after the crash. Her narrative scaffolding framed me less as villain, more as hapless witness. Good for their claim, good for my soul. Then she blindsided all of us. Mr. Oldman, are you currently residing with Mrs. Oldman? Dana's pen froze. Not predisclosed. Objection. Privacy. Judge allowed yes, no. I answered, yes, same residence, separate bedrooms. Camera lenses drank the tension. Lydia leaned back, satisfied. She'd etched marital fracture into transcript without sullying James. Score for strategy. Break called. In hallway hush, James rolled beside me. I vetoed personal digs, he whispered. She improvised. I believed him, surprisingly. Yet turmoil churned. Even allies weaponized truth when corners crave teeth. I nodded curt thanks, returned to room. Second half targeted engineering failure. My testimony held. At close, Dana exhaled relief. Lydia closed laptop with surgical click, and James offered a weary salute. Battle done, war deferred. Outside, weather warmed. Sidewalks bled slush. Sarah met me in the lobby, face mapped by nerves. How bad? She asked. Contained daggers. Nothing lethal. She touched my sleeve the way doctors test pulse. Dad used to say, a scar is a story that survived a knife. Maybe we're writing the same sentence now. We shared a fragile smile. Then lobby doors banged open. Tyler Fielding, 19 now, strode in, cheeks wined raw, fury spitting sparks behind him. Dean trailed, eyes rimmed red, gripping a rolled poster tube. Tyler jabbed a finger at me. You get to sit comfy and talk breaks while Dad can't feel his legs. Security moved, but James wheeled fast from conference doors, intercepting his sons like a dam. Enough, he barked, authority slicing air. Tyler's shoulders trembled. Dean produced the tube's content, a photo montage, frames of Sarah kissing James, tabloid headline watermarked, Crash Victim Finds Love in Driver's Home. My pulse plummeted. The boys glared at me, then their father. He humiliates Mom's memory, Tyler hissed, voice cracking. And you protect him? James's face paled. Vulnerability flickered. Your mother believed in forgiveness. Not adultery, Tyler shouted. Dana ushered staff away, cameras in lobby angled for sound bites. I stepped forward, palms raised. Your anger is valid, but smashing windows or careers won't heal. Dean's lips curled. Maybe not, but it'll feel good. Security loomed. Lydia coaxed the brothers out. James's eyes glistened, unshed grief pleading. Help me keep them from drowning where I nearly did. I nodded. Not ally, not enemy. Co-custodians of a bigger mess. As doors shut, Sarah sagged beside me. Hate breeds faster than snowmelt, she whispered. I replied, then we salt the roads before another storm. Someone in that lobby live-streamed the clash. The moment will viral echo by sunrise, turning private faults into public fissures we can't mortar fast enough. Night draped the city in velvet. Static. Sarah and I returned to the house. Window replaced, alarms upgraded. Yet dread hung like radon, invisible, toxic. Over dinner of reheated soup we barely tasted, we drafted emails, apologies to clinic patients, statements of support for James's family scholarship fund to damp online fire before it roared. Doorbell rang 9:30. I peered through side glass. No silhouette, just porch light's amber pool. Caution prickled. I opened the door on chain. A padded envelope rested against threshold. No courier. Inside, we cut it open. A flash drive and note. Play loud if you dare. No sender. Sarah's hand shook. Don't. We need to know. I slotted drive into laptop, speakers low, video loaded, dashcam footage, timestamped the night of crash. Yet vantage wasn't mine. It was a traffic camera angle we'd never seen. Resolution grainy but clear. My sedan, James in crosswalk. Impact, brutal. Then, overlay text rolled. He took his legs. What will he take next? Quick cut photos followed. Sarah exiting James's apartment, me at rehab, the shattered window scene, angles only a stalker skulking gutters could capture. Final frame. James asleep in his chair, vulnerable. A bullseye graphic pulsed over his heart. Sarah slapped pause, tears springing. This is violent threat. I scanned metadata, file named collisionredux.mp4. Whoever filmed had access to traffic cam archives. City employee? Hacker? I phoned Detective Kendra Voigt, the officer who'd handled the vandalism. She answered groggy but alert. I explained. She promised cyber forensics at dawn, plainclothes patrol tonight. After call, Sarah rubbed temples. What if the boys? Dean was shaky, but Tyler's rage isn't tech-savvy tomfoolery. This feels... Professional thunder rumbled distant, though forecast claimed clear skies. Power flickered. Laptop screen snowed static, then blacked out. Lights followed. Whole block plunged into blackout. Generator kicks? We had none. I lit a camping lantern, its halo carved fear sharper. Phone lost service. Cell tower or jammer. Sarah gripped my arm, crucifix visible beneath her sweater neckline, chain reacquired from police. From dark backyard came metallic clank. Gate latch? I snatched the fireplace poker. Sarah dialed 911. No signal. Heart drumming, I edged toward patio doors, lantern held high. Silhouette lurked by the shed, tall, hooded. Lantern glare caught metal. Camera lens? Suddenly motion light burst overhead, revealing no one. Gate hung ajar, wind creaking hinge. Sirens wailed blocks away, maybe ours, maybe someone else's panic. Power flicked back. Phones chirped, towers returning. Relief collapsed my knees. Sarah checked CCTV. New system captured nothing. Cameras looped glitchy black during outage. Sabotage. Detective Voigt arrived 20 minutes later, cruisers prowling streets. She analyzed drive, logged outage timing. Substation fuse disabled manually. Level of planning says obsession, she warned. Until we ID culprit, assume escalation. Voigt recommended protective order, security detail. Sarah exhaled, jagged. Harry, this is spiraling. I walked her to couch, hands clasped. We fight storms with sandbags, but sooner or later we build seawalls. I think it's time we stand beside James, publicly. Show solidarity, starve stalker of wedge. She nodded slow, resolve kindling. Press conference? Monday. Joint statement. All three of us, silence settled. Heavy, yet oddly stabilizing. Decision forged purpose. Purposeless fear shrinks in light. Upstairs, I placed the cracked windshield shard on bedside table beside the crucifix, a makeshift altar to consequences. Two symbols of broken past glinting like wary sentries. Sleep hissed fitful, but dawn eventually bled peach across curtains. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. Against prudence, I answered. A voice filtered, genderless by modulator. You think press conferences fix fate? Static crackle. Accidents should finish what they start. Keep preaching peace and someone else will pay the interest. Line cut. I sat on edge of bed, shard catching sunrise, firing rainbow onto ceiling. In that fractured spectrum, I saw the unavoidable. We'd stepped from chess into open war where pawns were civilians. Tyler, Dean, maybe Sarah's patients, maybe random commuters at that same cursed intersection. I texted James. Threat escalated. Need United Front ASAP. Call me. His reply arrived seconds later. One word. Together. Saturday unfurled beneath a pewter sky that seemed to press the city flatter with each passing hour, as though the weather itself wanted to keep every secret pinned where cameras could find it. James, Sarah, and I had agreed. Monday's joint statement would happen on the courthouse steps at noon sharp. That left 48 hours for enemies, named and unnamed, to rehearse fresh ways of turning us into spectacle. Detective Voight camped in our living room with a laptop, cables snaking across hardwood like nervous veins. Her digital forensics team had pulled metadata from the threatening video, spliced sources, municipal traffic footage lifted through a police-only credentials breach, and one handheld segment filmed from a rooftop bordering James's apartment. Whoever built the montage understood both bureaucracy and blind angles. Voight slid a mug of gunpowder-strong coffee in my direction. "Your stalker is disciplined," she said, posture rigid despite the couch's cushions. No fingerprints on the window stone, substation fuse removed with insulated gloves, cell tower jammer purchased off dark market forums. They're staging for a climax, not random intimidation. Across the room, Sarah was reorganizing her briefcase for the third time, refolding press packets until the creases looked machined. She murmured something about crisis points in public health messaging, a language she trusted more than fists or files. But her eyes kept drifting toward James, who remained silent by the bay window, wheelchair half in shadow. I joined him, lowering my voice. "Did you sleep at all?" "Dreams are expensive," he said. "I'm on a payment plan. Besides, shadows look different when you can't stand to meet them." I wondered if he caught the double meaning, then realized of course he had. James's intellect had grown barbed since the accident, sharp enough to hook every nuance that drifted too close. Voight closed her laptop with a decisive clap. "Until we ID a suspect, you three move like a convoy," she ordered. "Hotel to courthouse, courthouse to safe house. We'll assign a 2-car detail and float plain clothes in the crowd. And Harry? Wear the bullet-resistant vest." I blinked. "Isn't that for threats you can see coming?" "This one films your bedroom from the hedges," she said. "Vest up." Sarah exhaled a shaky laugh, the sound of someone circling panic to keep it from locking jaws. "Maybe I'll wear one under my lab coat at work. The entire hospital staff's gossiping already. I might as well appear heroic." James wheeled forward. "Tyler and Dean are safe?" Voight nodded. "Campus police flagged both at their dorm last night. Their anger is loud, but localized. They aren't our ghost." Hearing her speak of his sons as potential threats left a bruise I could almost see bloom across his features. He pivoted toward me when Voight stepped into the hallway to field a call. "If this ends badly," he said, "promise me you'll remember the boys are still learning what justice means." "We're all still students," I answered, hoping it sounded less hollow aloud. Evening crept in. Sarah insisted on cooking, something normal, she said. But her hands kept misjudging distance, spatulas clanging like stray cymbals. I set the table while James read aloud from a mystery novel, voice steady, pacing exact, giving her a rhythm to slice against. When the meal landed, we chewed in near silence until lightning stitched the sky outside. Power flickered, but backup generators whispered on instantly. Every shadow looked rehearsed. Late that night, after Voight left 2 patrol cars idling at the curb, Sarah found me in the study assembling the insurance binder the manufacturer's lawyers had requested. She pressed a folded note into my palm. No envelope this time. I waited until she slipped upstairs before opening it. "When the microphones turn on, I need you to remember how you asked me out the first time. Nervous, hopeful, wearing that ridiculous paisley tie. Stand beside me Monday with that same hope, Harry. If we falter but do it honestly, maybe the city will mirror our courage instead of our cracks. S." The tie in question still hung at the back of my closet, colors as audacious as the promise we once believed permanent. I laid the note atop the binder like a protective charm. Outside, thunder rolled again, deeper now, almost satisfied. Monday arrived wearing sunlight brighter than February deserved, and the courthouse plaza buzzed like a hive disturbed. Reporters adjusted tripods, spectators pressed barricades, and protesters for every conceivable cause waved placards until slogans bled together. Through tinted windows of the security van, the scene looked less like civic discourse, more like a pressure cooker set 1 degree from rupture. Voight rode shotgun, eyes mapping rooftops. Two unmarked sedans flanked us. A SWAT sniper nested in the law library across the street, though only insiders knew. I sat between Sarah and James, vest strapped under my charcoal suit. My heart beat against Kevlar like an inmate testing a cell door. The van eased to the curb. A uniformed officer opened the side door. Crowd noise crashed in. A tide of camera shutters, chants, the electric thrum of livestream notifications pinging phones. Sarah stepped out first, shoulders square, her white blazer crisp against the ever-blue sky. James followed, Malik steering the chair onto the ramp with surgeon's precision. I exited last, closing ranks so the three of us formed a single silhouette, imperfect, but united. We approached the portable lectern. Microphones bristled in a bouquet that smelled faintly of metal and desperation. Voight's agents mingled like casual onlookers, hands never straying far from hidden holsters. Sarah spoke first. Her prepared statement unfurled, calm, empathetic, uncompromising, acknowledgement of pain, commitment to safer streets, pledge to support the Fielding family. Camera lenses drank her poise, and murmurs sprouted. Perhaps admiration, perhaps impatience for salacious sound bites that never came. James leaned forward to the mic. He thanked medical teams, condemned harassment, and demanded systemic accountability over personal vendetta. As he paused, Breeze lifted his coat, revealing the wheelchair's scuffed frame, a testament more eloquent than any clause. Several protesters lowered their placards, surprise softening slogans. My turn. I cleared my throat, feeling the vest tighten. 4 years ago, my actions and a mechanical failure altered a good man's life. I've carried that night every hour since. Today, I stand beside him, not as redemption completed, but as responsibility ongoing. I swallowed. The person targeting our families dangers more than reputations. They aim at the fragile thread that holds communities together. Fear. We refuse to tie the knot. Applause, small, hesitant, rippled. Cameras pivoted for crowd reaction. Then a scream knifed the plaza. A woman pointed skyward. Above, a drone hummed, descending fast, black rotors slicing air. Something metallic dangled beneath, a cylinder flashing red. Panic ignited. People surged backward, barricades toppling. Voight barked orders into her mic. The drone veered, jockeying for position above our lectern. One rotor clipped a flagpole, sending it spinning. The dangling device, a paint can rigged with compressed air, detached, arcing toward James. Instinct uncoiled. I lunged, pushing his chair sideways as the canister exploded midair, spraying crimson liquid. It splattered the lectern, cameras, my suit. Red rained everywhere, vivid as fresh blood, but smelling sharply of dye and acetone. The crowd shrieked. Cell phones dove for slow-motion capture. SWAT snipers' report cracked overhead. The drone jerked, spiraled, and shattered against courthouse steps. Black shards skittered across paving stones. Police swept us into the building's vestibule. My ears rang. Dye dripped from my sleeve, brilliant against Kevlar. Sarah's face looked shell-shocked, yet fierce. James wiped red specks from his brow with a handkerchief bearing his son's initials. Voight arrived, hair slick with sweat and dye streaks. "All three of you okay?" We nodded. She cursed under breath. Drone was piloted from line of sight. Have to be nearby. Teams canvassing rooftops, Sarah turned to me, voice trembling between terror and gratitude. "Harry, thank you." James's eyes locked onto mine. Gratitude, certainly, but also something humbler. Recognition that the wheel of consequence had spun again and, for once, landed where sacrifice trumped regret. Outside, sirens layered atop chants, mutating into confusion, then anger at stolen spectacle. Reporters argued with officers over confiscated memory cards stained crimson. The courthouse doors blocked sound like aquarium glass, but vibration seeped through stone. An aide handed Sarah a towel. She dabbed streaks from my cheek. "Red wasn't meant for cameras," she murmured. They wanted blood-colored fear. I managed a grim smile. Guess we gave them courage-flavored footage instead. Behind us, James exhaled a long, slow breath. We just painted our message on every live stream in America, he said. Now let's hope someone reads past the color. The city reacted with whiplash speed. Afternoon talk shows looped freeze frames of the crimson splash over our heads, commentators arguing whether it was performance art or attempted terror. Hashtags bred litter across timelines. Through it all, one detail went largely unnoticed. The cylinder's label. Sovereign signature paints, discontinued 5 years ago after lead content lawsuits. A relic weaponized to stain reputations and, perhaps, lungs. Voight briefed us in a secured conference room. Forensics lifted partial prints from the flagpole the drone nicked, she said, tapping a tablet. Tyler Fielding's dorm access card shows he left campus at dawn and hasn't returned. James's shoulders bowed. My son wouldn't endanger Sarah. Voight raised an eyebrow. He might have aimed for you. Media framing be damned. Sibling loyalty's a tinderbox. Sarah placed a hand on James's arm. Anger metastasizes. If we don't excise it, it kills more than its host. While they debated, a stray memory needled me. The traffic cam hack, the video's bullseye graphic pulsing over James's sleeping chest. Whoever staged the drone wanted both spectacle and escalation. A narrative crescendo. Tyler's grief was loud, but was it calculated? I asked Voight for a timeline of the substation sabotage and drone purchase history. She promised to pull warrants. Meanwhile, the manufacturer's lawyers pounced, issuing a statement denouncing violence and praising our composure. Subtext: look how noble the defendants. Ergo, we're liable. Ellis texted me gifs of exploding paint cans. Captioned, your brand arc just got fireworks. I blocked his number for 24 hours. That night, we relocated to a federal safe house, a repurposed Victorian on a tree-lined street disguised as a land registry office. Agents installed us in separate upstairs rooms but left doors ajar for psychological ease. Sleep, however, found none of us. At 2 a.m., I padded to the shared hallway kitchenette for water. James sat there already, chair positioned near a half-open window, cold air lifting curtains like specters. The moon painted him silver, dye flecks still marking his collar, dried into constellations. He didn't glance up. You smell of bleach and cordite, he said. I rinsed the suit twice, still crimson ghosts. Ironic. You rescued the man who stole your wife's heart on the day you tried to rescue your own. I sank into the opposite chair. Maybe I was rescuing the sliver of me she still believes in. That sliver cut deep today. He finally met my gaze. Tyler doesn't see nuance. He sees the chair, the kiss, the man behind both. He thinks if I suffer one more blow, equilibrium returns. He's wrong, I said. Pain is bottomless. Thunder cracked somewhere distant. Winter storms still prowled the coast. The lamp flickered. Then the house lights died. A second later, generator hummed. Not the quiet kind ours had, but industrial rattling pipes. Footsteps thundered down the hallway. Voight's agents. One shouted, "Perimeter breach, South Transformer." My heart slammed. James and I exchanged a look. He spun his chair toward the door. I helped push, the hallway lit by emergency strips. Sarah emerged from her room, robe clutched at throat, eyes wide. Voight sprinted upstairs 2 at a time. Transformer blown. Generator holding. Stay put. She dashed past, but staying felt like waiting for fate with folded hands. I followed Voight while Sarah wheeled James into his room for cover. Downstairs, smoke seeped through ventilation grates. Acrid plastic. Kitchen window shattered inward. Frigid air roared. Outside, distant sirens multiplied. Voight's team swept rooms. I scanned backyard through jagged glass. A figure scaled the perimeter fence, silhouetted by police floodlights arriving too late. The intruder paused, turning back. Even at distance, I recognized the lanky frame, the fielding jawline sharpened by desperation. Tyler. He raised a device. A remote detonator? My pulse cannoned. I shouted his name across the yard. The word tore my throat raw. For a blink, he froze, remote wavering. Floodlights caught rain on his cheeks. Or were those tears? Then he vanished over fence just as officers spilled into alley. Voight grabbed my shoulder. "You know him?" she barked. "James's son." Breath ragged. "He triggered the transformer." She swore. Radioed pursuit. Back upstairs, Sarah cradled James's face, both streaked with fear and relief. I relayed what I'd seen. James closed his eyes as though someone had stitched them. "He thinks he's saving me from false forgiveness," James whispered. "If hate is all he has left, he'll guard it with bombs." Sirens crescendoed, blue light washing walls like tides of accusation. The safe house no longer felt safe, just another glass pane awaiting a stone. At dawn, Voight returned. Tyler escaped, but left fingerprints on remote device parts found near transformer. Arrest warrant in motion. James accepted the news without tears, only the exhausted gaze of a man realizing every victory costs an equal weight in loss. We watched sunrise stain the sky, a color uncannily close to the paint that had drenched us. Light and blood shared more shades than anyone wanted to admit. And somewhere beyond that horizon, a young man ran on borrowed fury, convinced that blowing holes in the future could mend the past. The choice looming now belonged to James and me. Catch him with empathy, or let the law net him hard. Maybe forever. Either way, the next step would carve the story's ultimate outline, and none of us could claim clean hands when the ink dried. The fugitives of grief almost always double back to the scene they swear they'll outrun. Tyler proved no exception. By Tuesday dusk, Detective Voight's dragnet had triangulated his last cell ping near the same rain-slick intersection that defined all our orbits. Patrols funneled traffic away, cruiser lights strobing crimson reflections on puddles. The air smelled of gasoline and thawing dirty snow, February's confession letter. James insisted on being there. Hospital van, Kevlar blanket, oxygen cannula ready in case panic constricted his lungs. Sarah argued. Voice cracked from nights without sleep, but his resolve outweighed hers. "If I'm the drum his rage marches to," he said, "then I must be the hand that stills it." The line sounded rehearsed, yet every syllable carried marrow. Voight placed us in an unmarked car half a block from the cordon. She warned of unpredictability. The transformer blast proved Tyler capable of collateral damage. The crucifix and stone felt quaint after drones and blackout. Yet, deep down, I sensed his arsenal had never been bombs. It was the narrative, the power to revise endings his father accepted too soon. We waited. Headlights slid across windshield glass like nervous heartbeats. News choppers circled overhead, blades chopping the dark, eager to crown a tragedy live. Sarah's hand found mine. Her palm trembled, damp, but the grip felt stronger than any steel. 30 minutes crawled before a lone silhouette emerged from alley shadows, slender frame hunched against wind, hood down. Tyler stepped under the glow of a street lamp whose bulb flickered like a dying conscience. He held nothing but a tattered poster tube, same one once filled with tabloid photos. A rookie officer aimed rifle light. Tyler halted, raised empty hands, poster clutched under his arm. James's breath caught. "Let me out," he whispered. Voight's chin dipped. Malik unfolded ramp. James rolled forward, bones rattling over pavement seams. Sarah and I flanked him, the three of us advancing into the cone of lamplight, as if summoned by fate's stage manager. Officers held perimeter. Tyler's eyes shone feral bright, pupils blown by sleeplessness and adrenaline. The boy, man, really, looked both older and heartbreakingly younger than 19. Red dye still flecked his shoes like guilt that wouldn't rinse. "You came," he muttered, voice raw. James stopped 2 yards away. I never left you, Tyler. I only tried to walk again with different muscles. Tyler barked brittle laughter. Walk? You're crusading with the ones who crippled you. I stepped forward. He recoiled. Your father chose justice, I said. You're choosing vengeance. They bleed different colors. He ignored me, eyes drilling James. Mom died praying the world had logic. Then you forgave this. His gaze skewered me. And her. Sarah stiffened. You call that logic? He opened the poster tube. A bundle of photographs hissed out, scattering across wet asphalt. Sarah kissing James. Newsprint headlines. Stills of crimson paint explosion. Tyler kicked them. That's the mosaic you make me study. James's shoulders slumped. Son, I can't teach you forgiveness. I can only model it. The exam's yours. He wheeled closer, fearless as only a man already sentenced to 1 prison can be. But if fury is your diploma, it'll emboss itself on every life you touch. Sirens Dopplered nearer, more units sealing streets. Tyler glanced around, chest heaving. He drew a small remote, identical to Transformer device, and thumbed the trigger. Nothing happened. A faint click. That was all. Voight's voice rang through bullhorn. Remote disabled, Tyler. Jammers active. Stand down. He laughed again, tears streaking grime. The remote clattered from his hand. I never wired bombs tonight. The threat is emptiness. You, Dad, can't feel it, so you pretend wheels are wings. James's lip quivered. I feel everything. That's why I choose release, Tyler echoed, almost tasting the word. Show me how. James's cursor-steady hands reached up, unlatched seatbelt, and with Malik's unseen help, he pushed on armrests until his torso angled forward, frail but unbroken. Release starts when you stop designing endings around someone else's crash, he said. Write your own. Tyler's knees buckled. Officers moved, but I raised a palm. He knelt before the chair, forehead pressing James's lap like an absolution ritual reversed. Sobs jagged his shoulders. Somewhere, a chopper spotlight cooled, cameras reluctantly dimming as drama traded climax for catharsis. The city exhaled in one collective breath. Sarah knelt too, arms folding both men in a triangle of salted forgiveness. I watched, tears unstitching private armor, realizing history had surrendered one of its sharpest shards. 3 months later, spring thaw painted Boston in tender green, and Superior Court swelled with watchers expecting pyrotechnic testimony. They got something quieter yet more combustible, a manufacturer attorney handing over pre-trial settlement documents thick as tombstones, break design memos, whistleblower emails, hidden recall drafts. Faced with incontrovertible negligence, the company settled for a figure large enough to bankroll state rehab programs for a decade. Inside oak-walled courtroom H, James rolled to witness stand anyway, not for damages, those were ink dry, but for victim impact statement. Sarah sat behind him, palms together as if holding a fragile bird. Tyler and Dean flanked her. Court-mandated counseling had turned them from grenades into sponges, soaking hard lessons. James's statement began with mechanical failure, veered into systemic apathy, then landed where hearts beat. Forgiveness as infrastructure stronger than steel. Cameras captured every word. An anchor later called it a masterclass in humanity. I believed it a blueprint for survival. When my turn came, I spoke of responsibility. I admitted times I'd wanted to hide behind legal absolution, times I'd cursed crosswalk ghosts. I owned every frailty, then described the night of red paint and the moment I chose to shield the man I once crippled. Mercy, I concluded, is the only collision where all drivers walk away alive. The phrase trended for hours. Ellis texted to say brand arc redemption secured, then wisely deleted it. Judge Evans, cheeks glossy, praised parties for transcending adversarial gravity. The gavel's rap sounded less like verdict, more like church bell. Outside, press swarmed. We'd prepared a single joint statement, brief, unsensational, then walked away together. Microphones shouted for sequel angles, but none of us looked back. Tyler slipped his arm under his father's. Dean carried backpacks stacked with settlement paperwork. Sarah and I shared a glance neither past nor future, but fiercely present. Weeks unfurled. Settlement money funded accessible housing grants. Tyler spearheaded volunteer builds. His penance poured into fresh lumber and splinters. Dean interned at Voight's cyber forensics unit, using hacking curiosity to patch holes instead of exploit them. James chaired a city committee on pedestrian safety. I reviewed budgets, pro bono. Sarah and I waded into marriage therapy sessions thick with awkward pauses and gallows humor. Trust regrew slower than moss, but each week a new green patch appeared, clinging to stone. One afternoon she handed me the paisley tie, ironed crisp. "Wear it when you feel brave," she said. I wore it to grocery shopping. Test flight. No panic nosedive. On the anniversary of the crash, the city unveiled redesigned crosswalk signals. James invited me to cut ribbon with him. Cameras recorded the moment, but felt incidental. The applause that mattered came from a passerby who'd lost her sister to a drunk driver and whispered, "Thank you for proving grief can build instead of burn." That night we gathered at my house, windows unbarred, alarm standard grade. Malik grilled fish in backyard. Tyler tuned guitar. Twilight spread lilac above rooftops. I noticed the cracked windshield shard still on mantel beside the crucifix, dusted but visible. For a heartbeat, I considered storing them away, then left them. Reminders belong where eyes can greet them, not hidden where they breed unease. As plates emptied and conversation swelled easy, Sarah nudged me. "Feel that?" she asked. "Wind?" "No. Absence of dread. New weather system." I smiled, realizing storms had indeed migrated, though radar could never chart their course. Summer's edge found me on a daiquiri-sticky porch in Bar Harbor, where sea and sky trade secrets in tides. Work granted sabbatical. Doctor ordered ocean air to sandpaper residual anxiety. Sarah, busy with clinic expansion, joined on weekends. Today, it was just me, the gulls, and a letter-size envelope forwarded from Boston. Return address. Independent Documentary Guild. I slid it. Notice of a film in progress. Red paint, black ice, seeking interview rights. Producer attached a treatment pitching our saga as cautionary symphony about accountability culture, drone violence, and the alchemy of guilt into grace. They offered honorarium, editorial review. I set it aside. Stories escape cages. I'd learned you can't muzzle narrative once released. But you could choose cameo or ghost. I closed my eyes, let wind comb my hair, and thought of Tyler hammering ramps onto front porches, James drafting essays on urban ethics, Sarah rewriting protocols for patient trauma disclosure. That was the film worth screening. One rolling daily without director's megaphone. Footsteps creaked. I opened eyes to find James at bottom of steps, Malik waving from rental car. Surprise day trip. He'd taken driving lessons with Adaptive Van. Chief therapist signed off last week. He maneuvered up ramp, parked beside me. We shared lobster rolls, sea salt chips, silence comfortable as wool. Eventually, James cleared throat. "I declined the documentary," he said. "So did I replied. He watched Gull dive bomb a crust. Truth's value depreciates when traded too often. "You keep yours?" "In my fireplace," I said, cracked glass and crucifix still there. Not trophies, not warnings, just artifacts. James nodded, eyes tracing horizon. Artifacts remind us we're sedimentary, layers pressed by time, still fragile. Breath of brine, creak of rope masts. Then he reached into jacket, produced a small velvet pouch. Tyler found this among his mother's jewelry, he said, placing it on table. I opened it, a thin gold medallion etched with a lily, petals halfway unfurled. Anniversary gift I meant to give her before the accident, he continued. Lily for rebirth. Never had chance. I can't. You must. His gaze gentle. Give it to Sarah if timing feels right. Call it knot. Call it key. Symbols travel farther than contrition. Throat tightened. Thank you. Evening slanted and shadows lengthened. Malik honked for return drive. Before rolling away, James paused. Harry, release isn't forgetting, he said, wheels turning. It's carrying the weight differently until it shapes muscle, not wound. Long after the van disappeared down pine-lined road, I held the medallion up to amber sky. Sunlight flashed through lily petals, projecting delicate silhouette onto porch rail. My reflection overlapped it. Man and bloom merged for a blink, until glare dissolved. I pocketed the gift, packed leftover chips, and walked shoreline path where pebbles sang underfoot. Sarah would arrive Friday. I pictured presenting the medallion over dinner, perhaps at the pier where we once danced under string lights before bills, before verdicts, before drones. Would she accept? Answer unwritten, but thread-strong. Waves slapped rock rhythm. Distant bellbuoy clanged reassurance. I breathed salt and possibility, feeling for the first time that the chessboard rain-slick night had scattered pieces across might finally reset. Not to start a fresh game, but to let players step away, hands unclenched. Behind me, footprints filled slowly with incoming tide, erasing prints yet deepening sand. Nothing stays unbroken. Nothing resists shape entirely. The ocean, patient sculptor, knows. Each fragment becomes sand if given time, and sand becomes shoreline for those learning to walk again, even those who once could not. Somewhere beyond the horizon, a film crew would keep hunting climax. Social feeds would thirst for outrage, and crosswalk signals would blink caution. I'd still glance twice before stepping off any curb, but I'd trust the road, trust the driver I'd become, one who corners slower, senses weight in every pedal, and measures distance not just in feet, but in hearts within radius. Night slid forward, violet and tender, and with it came a quiet vow floating simple as the buoy's chime. Drive with lights on, love with brakes tested, forgive before the asphalt cools. The shoreline echoed back a promise of its own, wave after wave. Every scar is an inlet where new water learns the land.